Alright, y'all. I'm here with Big Red, and I just want to go over some tips. I'm just going to let y'all know some stuff that I've learned and done to keep transaxles alive for long periods of time, not be around blowing gears or burning up bushings, which is a mistake I've done in the past. I might go back there and grab one and show you later, too. Wheel spacing and mounting points and everything. I just want to go over how I managed to keep Big Red's transmission alive, beating on it the way I do. So, the first thing I'm going to talk about is fluid. You want to fluid fill your transmissions and keep an eye on the fluid in your transmission, in a way. After you first fluid fill your transmission, take it down the road or through the yard a couple times. Look around and look on all the seals. Look around where the brake shaft sticks through the side of the case. It's about this area. Make sure it's not leaking and dripping oil through there real bad. And look at your axle ends. Look down here by your spacers. See if it's covered in oil, if it's dripping or something, because that's bad. You don't want to be dripping oil all over the place like this. Yeah, that's gear oil. This one has a slight leak in a couple spots. This is a rebuilt MST 205 with a 6th gear added into it from a 206. I took all the best parts I had from all the transmissions I had and rebuilt this one. That's why this thing is so wide compared to most Craftsman's. This side is slightly skinnier for whatever reason, but who cares? Not going to notice, it's just a little bit. But the thing you want to watch about with oil is if it's leaking oil somewhere, refill it every once in a while. Because I have burned a transmission up because it got ran dry of fluid. I didn't put enough fluid in it when I rebuilt it, I don't think. And then it got ran dry, destroyed a bunch of the bronze bushings inside of it, which caused the shafts to kind of spread apart like this, and some gears blow up due to that. Took a tooth off one and shredded the teeth of another. Destroyed the shaft because it was rubbing on the case instead of in a bushing. Did all sorts of stuff to it. There wasn't much left of that transmission that was savable. So, you have to keep an eye on it. Another thing to do to keep the fluid in there is when you're going real fast on these, obviously, it's going to build heat inside of your transmission. If your transmission gets too hot, it builds pressure, because heat creates pressure inside of stuff. And because these are mostly sealed with RTV all around the edges, axle seals, a brake seal, it's going to build pressure and try and shoot fluid and stuff out of it everywhere it can to get rid of the excess heat and pressure in the case. So you want to vent the transmission. I have one example of two of how you can do this. I'm not sure on spicers, but on MSTs, here's silver bullets. See that fill plug right there? That little rubber fill plug, if you pop that plug out, you can take some 5/16, I think it's a 5/16 outside diameter fuel line and press it in there. You can just press fuel line in there and put RTV on it, and there's a vent. Put a filter on it so dirt, mud, and crap doesn't get in there, and you're good to go. But if your pulley's in the way, just get a 90-degree fitting and tap some threads in there and, face it the right way. Put some Loctite on there, and then have it go out under your belt system and then up. That transmission in Big Red is actually shooting oil out from the brake seal right now because I don't have a 90-degree fitting to vent it with. So, because of that, it kind of needs one. Again, here's another example on this top half. This was the 206 top half that I gutted a 206 for the 6th gear and one of the shafts. And, again, there's that. This case is actually destroyed. The bolts were gone, so I just drilled through and angle grinded stuff. Another thing is if you have the transmission apart, on MSTs at least, this is a 6203 part number bearing. They fit in there on some of them. This 205 case was cast weird or something, so I couldn't fit bearings, but it's good enough. Now, that's just fluid and seals and whatever, right? And how to vent it. And that will fix a lot of stuff. I mean, just adding fluid. Your transmission's going to be quieter. If you don't like the screaming of it, extra fluid. I always overfill my transmissions, because overfilled transmissions is more fluid slinging around and getting to bushings. And if it leaks out, it's not going to go much below stock. So that helps a lot. And I've not blown transmission up since. This one, I mean, you can barely hear it when going down the road. Now, the next thing is mounting points. I've had issues where these transmissions strip bolts because they're aluminum, right? It's just aluminum threads and a bolt going into it, and it either strips the threads or the bolt backs out. Even with lock washers on there, bolt backs out, put it back in, and it's just tearing up the threads more and more and more because it's just cast aluminum. If it does strip, you can get some JB Weld and just pack a bunch of JB Weld in there and drill and tap it again. It'll work. It's not the best solution, but it'll work if you do mess something up. Another thing is do not over tighten the bolts. This one, none of the bolts have fallen out anywhere, and I've driven it multiple times. I've beat on it, I've drifted on it, and every single bolt has been tightened into the aluminum case with a screwdriver, and not one of them has fallen out. The way I did that was using red Loctite, not the wimpy blue stuff. You use red Loctite and tighten them with a screwdriver. I tightened them as tight as I could possibly get, but with a screwdriver. That keeps you from stripping threads because it's not over torquing bolts. So you're not going to break a bolt in the case because, again, it's not over torquing it. And it's just screwdriver tight with red Loctite. A wrench will easily pop it back off if you need the bolts back out. Another thing is you want as many mounts as you possibly can so it doesn't go anywhere. If you might be able to see in some of the videos of the Little Red Murray. If you look at it, it has Craftsman mounts going up to the outside of the frame instead of just down through the top like factory. Those suck. One mount that's far back, your transmission's going to be doing this crap until it snaps the case or bends that bolt and it doesn't want to come back out or something. Weird stuff's going to happen. That's why we redid it with that setup. It doesn't even have that one anymore. But Big Red, I wanted it to not go anywhere when I put this transmission in. So you all probably have seen in the shorts my redo. Has a factory mount going up to the frame at an angle, and then those two where the brakes go, just tighten in there, 1/4 inch, 1 inch square tubing up to some holes on the frame, which I believe were factory on this side. And that keeps my transmission solid on this side. It's not going anywhere. Again, this side is somewhat similar. If you look, it just has a factory mount going up to the frame. Nothing special there. But if you look in here, you might be able to see it. You can kind of see it. See those that bolt head right over there? That is a 90-degree bracket in the top of the frame. Well, yeah, kind of frame. Trying to get you in there. Yeah, can't really see it that well. I might throw a picture in here of it. But what that 90-degree bracket does is add a little extra support on that side as well to keep that side from wanting to come up. And the bolt going into the top of the case, that was the only bolt threaded into the aluminum that I used a wrench on. So the reason I did that is there wasn't room for a screwdriver, and I just used like one finger and just, oh, that's good. Again, drenched in red Loctite. Now, you all probably don't have these, but I have a spare 820 top and bottom case, including 820 case bolts. They have quite a bit of thread on them all the way through, unlike shoulder bolts or whatever that say stop here. Only have this much thread and the rest is just a shoulder. So I actually bolted through the top of the case with an 820 case bolt to use as much thread as I possibly could to keep it from stripping and more material in there. So if it tries to flex, it's not going to rip the threads out. Simple, but works. I mean, I've done clutch dumps. I did a third gear clutch dump and was slinging snow 10 feet behind me. And as you can see, everything held up. So, I mean, it's really nice and sturdy. Transmission doesn't go anywhere. It drives good, it's reliable. At least for the 2 times I've drove it so far. Other than one thing, axle spacers. We used to run the custom cruiser with like this much in play. So the wheel will move like this much. You don't want that. You want as little play as you can possibly get. Right? You want to be able to jack this thing up and move the wheel like side to side like less than a 1/16 of an inch. Right? Because the less wheel play you have means the less you are going to move, but your wheels aren't, right? And if you want stability at higher speeds than stock and off-road, that's a good thing to have. So I'm going to show you all actually real quick by lifting my rear end up just a little bit. And you can see, look at how little play I have. That's actually like it's flexing. It's not even moving in and out. It doesn't hardly move. Pretty much what I did is I put as many washers in there and spacers in there as I possibly could until I had one washer in the E-clip on the outside and the E-clip barely fit. Like the E-clip is pressed onto the very end of the axle pretty much as far as it can go without being outside its groove. Right? And then you kind of kick the rim back and forth and make sure it's not going to come off and has just the tiniest bit of play. I did that on both sides. Now, this is kind of irrelevant for most of y'all, but I ended up using a factory spacer from this Murray transmission on this side. I only had just that one. So 2 washers, factory spacer, 2 more washers, then 1 washer in the clip. This side, because I only have one of those Murray ones, it's 1 washer, 3 factory Craftsman spacers, 1 washer, and that was correct for that side. Now, I'm wondering if I yank this thing out a little bit, move it over, I might be able to get in there and show y'all that mount real quick that I was talking about. More than just a picture. And that's also if I forget to show a picture. You can kind of see it there. Yeah, I'll just have a picture put in somewhere before. But yeah, I mean, that keeps your transmission solid. And real quick, before I end the video off, in case some of you are wondering what kind of fluid I am running in my transmission, a lot of people just run regular old, engine oil like 10W30, 10W40. I run a mix. I take some of this STP oil treatment. It has zinc anti-wear stuff in there and lubricates really well. It's for engines, but the zinc is good for metal on metal stuff. And of course, it's a transmission, there's gears. So I dump a decent amount, not too much of that in there, because it's literally like as thick as honey. So, because it's so thick like honey, slinging around there, it's going to be a little bit of a challenge. Along with that, I just take some ADW90. This is Valvoline ADW90 for Dad's truck that we had left over. We have like 2 bottles. There's still another brand new bottle up there This is high performance stuff. I dumped nearly half a quart of this in there, along with like that much out of another bottle that was left, and the STP. So probably around half a quart of straight gear oil in there. Well, just fluid, really. So that transmission should last a long time. It's not going anywhere. Something I didn't mention as well is that this actually has Peerless 820 second, third, fourth, and fifth gears. The reason I didn't really mention that is because most of y'all aren't going to have Peerless 820 gears just spare lying around like I did. So, but if you do, you could chuck them in a 206, 205. They fit, they work. The gear ratios are a little different, but work. So, but hopefully that helps anybody who's messing with these transmissions. So, another thing I actually got asked a while ago is how I shift without blowing the transmission up. It's pretty simple. There's a couple ways you can do it. Normally, you're holding it full throttle. Say I was in third gear, holding it full throttle. You can let off the gas, push the clutch just a little bit, and pop it into the next gear real quick. Or just full throttle, let off, pop it into the next gear real quick, and get back on the gas. I do that sometimes. I use the clutch sometimes. Sometimes I'm just doing this. Sometimes I'm taking it easy and just letting off, pushing the clutch, shifting, smoothly. But if you shift without using the clutch, you have to let off the gas. If you shift with the clutch, I actually used to power shift. I used to just hold it wide open, push the clutch, pop it into the next gear, and let off the clutch. So, but this video is getting quite long, so probably going to shut it off here, go edit some crap together in it, and turn it into a premiere so people can watch. So hopefully this helps y'all if you're, rebuilding transmissions, because they're a pain. So see y'all later. I'm out.